I want to start with a statement that might feel uncomfortable at first. Every time you level up in life, something or someone will be removed from your life. Sometimes it's a habit. Sometimes it's a mindset. Sometimes it's a job. Sometimes it's a friendship. Sometimes it's even a relationship you thought would last forever. And in that moment, it doesn't feel like growth. It feels like loss. It feels like rejection. It feels like abandonment. But here's the truth many people discover later in life. Sometimes the greatest blessings in your life begin with something leaving. Sometimes what feels like rejection is actually redirection. Sometimes what feels like loss is actually alignment. And sometimes what looks like an ending is actually the beginning of the life you're meant to live. The moment behind closed doors. Many of us have experienced this moment. You're behind a closed door. Maybe it's late at night. Maybe you're sitting on the edge of your bed. Maybe you're in your car after a long day. And tears start falling. You're crying about a friendship that ended. You're crying about a relationship that fell apart. You're crying about a door that closed. And in that moment your mind starts asking questions. Why did this happen? What did I do wrong? Why did they leave? Why wasn't I enough? And in that quiet moment behind that closed door, your ego starts speaking. The ego tells you a story. A story about rejection. A story about failure. A story about not being chosen. But sometimes while you're crying behind that closed door, something bigger is happening. Sometimes life is rearranging things. Sometimes God is clearing space. Sometimes the ending you're grieving is preparing you for something greater than you can see right now. Growth changes your environment. One of the most important truths about growth is this. When you grow, your environment must eventually change. Your habits change. Your thinking changes. Your priorities change. Your standards change. And naturally, the people around you may change too. In the book Atomic Habits, author James Clear explains something powerful. Our behaviors are strongly shaped by the environments we're in. He writes about how the people around us influence our habits, expectations, and identity. If everyone around you is living a certain way, it becomes normal. If everyone around you thinks small thinking becomes normal. If everyone around you avoids growth, avoiding growth becomes normal. But when you begin leveling up, when you start working on yourself, when you start changing your mindset, you begin to notice something. The environment that once felt comfortable may start feeling unfamiliar. Not because you're better than anyone, but because you're different than you used to be. The ego's fear of change. Now let's talk about the ego. The ego loves comfort. The ego loves familiarity. Even if that familiarity is unhealthy. Even if that familiarity keeps you stuck. In A New Earth, author Eckhart Tolle explains that the ego builds its identity around attachments. Attachments to roles, relationships, status, expectations, people. So when something leaves your life, the ego panics. It says, "You're losing something. You're being rejected. You're being abandoned." But many times the ego cannot recognize growth. Because growth often looks like loss at first. Imagine a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. That transformation requires the caterpillar to completely dissolve inside the cocoon. From the outside it looks like destruction. But inside, transformation is happening. The same thing happens in our lives. Sometimes things must fall apart for something better to come together. When friendships change. Let's talk about friendships. Because this is one of the most painful areas where growth shows up. Many of us have had friends who were once extremely close to us. You talked every day. You laughed together. You shared secrets. You supported each other. But over time, things changed. Maybe you started focusing on your goals. Maybe you started prioritizing your mental health. Maybe you started setting boundaries. Maybe you started growing. And suddenly the friendship feels different. Conversations become awkward. Energy shifts. Distance grows. And the relationship that once felt natural starts feeling forced. This happens more often than people admit. In the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, author Stephen R. Covey emphasizes that the people we surround ourselves with influence our character, habits, and direction. Some friendships are built around convenience, shared environment, sold habits, comfort. But when your life starts moving in a new direction, not every friendship can move with you. And that doesn't mean the friendship was fake. It simply means it belonged to a different season of your life. The pain of breakups. Now let's talk about romantic relationships. Because heartbreak can be one of the most painful growth experiences anyone goes through. You fall in love. You build dreams together. You imagine a future together. And when the relationship ends, it can feel like your entire world collapses. But here's something relationship psychology teaches us. Many people don't stay in relationships because they are healthy. They stay because they fear being alone. In the book Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller, researchers explain how attachment styles influence the way people form romantic bonds. Some people stay in relationships that don't support their emotional needs simply because they fear losing connection. But growth sometimes requires difficult endings. Sometimes the breakup you're crying about today is protecting you from a future that wouldn't have fulfilled you. Sometimes the relationship that ends is making space for the one that will actually support your purpose. You may think you lost a boyfriend. You may think you lost a girlfriend. But one day you might realize you were actually being prepared to meet your husband or your wife. Commitment to personal evolution. Here is where everything shifts. Growth becomes powerful when you commit to it. When you decide that becoming the best version of yourself matters more than staying comfortable. That commitment changes your life. In Mindset, The New Psychology of Success, psychologist Carol S. Dweck describes the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. A fixed mindset believes people cannot change. A growth mindset believes people can evolve through effort, learning, and persistence. People with a growth mindset expect change. They expect challenges. They expect discomfort. Because they understand something powerful. Growth requires transformation. And transformation requires letting go of the person you used to be. Sudden shifts in life. Sometimes change happens gradually. But sometimes life changes overnight. A friendship ends unexpectedly. A job disappears. A relationship falls apart. A door closes suddenly. And you're left asking, how did everything change so fast? But often the truth is that change was building beneath the surface for a long time. In the novel The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, the central message revolves around following your personal legend, your deeper purpose in life. When the main character commits to pursuing his destiny, unexpected events begin guiding him toward that path. The journey is difficult. There are losses. There are sacrifices. But those experiences shape him into the person capable of fulfilling his purpose. Our lives often work the same way. The obstacles and endings we experience can be shaping us for something greater. The right people arrive. Now here's the part people often forget. When certain people leave your life, space opens. And that space allows new people to enter. People who match your growth. People who understand your vision. People who support your journey. In Think and Grow Rich, author Napoleon Hill talks about the mastermind principle. This principle says that when the right people come together with aligned goals, Their collective energy and knowledge create opportunities for success that none of them could achieve alone. That means your next level may require a different circle. Not a larger circle, but a more aligned circle. People who encourage your discipline, challenge your thinking, support your purpose, hold you accountable, celebrate your growth. Trusting the process. One of the hardest parts of personal growth is trusting the process when you can't see what's ahead. When something ends, you don't immediately see the new opportunity. You only see the empty space. But that empty space is often where transformation begins. Think about planting a seed. When a seed is planted in the ground, it disappears. It's buried, hidden. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. But underground, something powerful is taking place. Roots are growing. Strength is forming. And eventually that seed breaks through the soil and becomes something far greater than what it started as. Your life often works the same way. The seasons where you feel buried may actually be the seasons where your roots are growing. Letting go of what no longer fits. Growth requires letting go. Letting go of old habits, limiting beliefs, toxic environments, relationships that drain your energy, identities that no longer represent who you're becoming. Letting go is painful. But holding on to something that no longer fits you can be even more painful. Because every time you refuse to grow, you deny the future version of yourself. And that future version of you is waiting. Waiting for you to become who you were meant to be. The person you're becoming. So if you're in a season right now where things are shifting, friendships fading, relationships ending, paths changing, don't automatically assume something went wrong. Instead, ask yourself, what if this is part of my growth? What if this ending is preparing me for something greater? What if the people leaving my life are creating space for the ones who belong in my future? Because when you commit to your evolution, life begins rearranging things. Not to punish you, but to align you. Final message. Every level of your life requires a different version of you. The version of you that got here may not be the version of you that will get you to the next level. So sometimes life removes things. Sometimes life removes people. Sometimes life removes situations that once felt permanent. But those changes are often preparing you for something bigger. Better friendships. Better opportunities. Better love. Better purpose. And a better version of yourself. So if you're going through change right now, don't panic. Don't assume you're losing everything. You might actually be leveling up.